This video has three main goals. The first, to identify and explain four major approaches to writing instruction. The second, to analyze the advantages and disadvantages of each approach. And lastly, and most importantly, to consider the ways Catholic high schools can choose the writing approaches best suited for their students to meet their needs. The 6+1 trait approach to writing instruction focuses on providing students common vocabulary that teachers use to talk about writing across classes, schools, and districts. These 6+1 are the traits that are used as common goals and guideposts to improve student writing. The 6+1 approach to writing instruction is founded on the belief that students need consistent and accurate feedback to improve as writers, and teachers need guides for appropriate writing instruction. The aforementioned traits are ideas, organization, voice, word choice, sentence fluency, conventions, and the +1 being presentation, the actual writing on a paper. As with any method of instruction, the 6+1 approach to writing instruction has advantages and disadvantages. Some of the advantages for this method of instruction are: it provides a common language for faculty and students to relate to when discussing writing. It provides a framework for students that they can use as checklists during the writing process. They are traits that can be used as a rubric for assessment, either as part of the writing process or for final products, and it encourages focus on the steps of writing. Some of the disadvantages of this approach to writing instruction are: it's not a set curriculum or program. It is up to the teacher to develop lessons, activities, and assignments that allow students to work on meeting those 6+1 traits. Additionally, it requires a great deal of teacher-led instruction rather than student-led and focused activities. The process approach to writing engages students in instruction during each phase of the writing process. The process approach is focused on the holistic process of writing rather than the final product, and engages students in collaboration. It's very common for teachers who subscribe to the process method of writing instruction to only grade certain aspects of writing assignments, or to grade along the way rather than focusing on a final product. The process approach does not have a set definition, as the 6+1 approach to writing instruction did. Generally, as Graham and Sandmel point out, the three common attributes of all teachers who subscribe to the process approach to writing instruction is a focusing on planning, which involves goal setting for writing; translating, which is a writing plan into action; and lastly, reviewing, which includes evaluating and editing. Some of the advantages of the process approach to writing instruction are that it improves student self-perception. Students can improve individually at certain aspects of the process and thus realize a more instant success. Secondly, the process becomes automated, and this is a program that could be implemented in K-12 and even at the university level. Additionally, students are often, in this approach, writing for a purpose and an audience, rather than writing abstract pieces that are simply put in a teacher's folder. Some of the disadvantages of this approach is that it's time-consuming, and that instruction needs to be provided in the classroom for each step of the process. It requires a great deal of pre-planning on the teacher's part, and there's less focus on the final product, which can be at odds with letters of recommendation and college admissions essays, ACT essays, SAT essays, and the high-stakes writing students will be engaged in as they move through their high school years. Writing across the curriculum, affectionately known as WAC, developed in the 1980s due to fears and a perception that there was declining literacy skills amongst college graduates. WAC seems to simultaneously improve students' writing ability as well as their knowledge in a given discipline, thus developing students into experts in a given field. The writing that historians do is very different than the writing that English majors do, English professors do, biologists do, and WAC seems to perceive that that should be valued, and that students should be taught to write within each discipline. WAC expects students to both write to learn and learn to write simultaneously. Some of the advantages of writing across the curriculum as a mode of instruction are that it encourages drafting and revising. It promotes higher level sophisticated analysis, and students are turned into experts within their discipline. Some of the disadvantages of writing across the curriculum are that research suggests it benefits top students more than those who are struggling. Constant grading and feedback is needed as students are molded into experts, and it must be implemented by trained teachers. There is a difference between being able to teach history and being able to write like a historian, and it's important that teachers who implement this mode of instruction are appropriately trained through the process. Lastly, on-demand writing requires students to respond to prompts in a fixed amount of time in order to demonstrate proficiency with certain skills. On-demand writing is less focused with the content of writing and less focused on research and more focused on the skills that a student can perform and demonstrate in a given set of time. On-demand writing seeks to prepare students for writing on standardized assessments such as the ACT and SAT. On-demand writing also simulates real-world writing as emails, letters, memos are not often planned and they are more spontaneous. Some of the advantages of on-demand writing are that they help prepare students for standardized tests. Teachers are allowed to assess purely writing skills rather than content since there is no draft. On-demand writing also allows a teacher to see what students can do without their assistance. Some of the disadvantages of on-demand writing are that it's pressure-packed. Students work under a time crunch. It requires a timely assessment by the teacher in order to use the results to guide instruction. There is no structure provided in the writing, and oftentimes this writing is done for an inauthentic purpose, just to simply assess ability rather than research or knowledge gained. Now we're going to shift our focus to Catholic education, specifically Catholic high schools, and look at some of the determining factors the Catholic high school should use in order to see which method of writing instruction is best for its students. During the 2013 and 2014 school year, there were 1,195 Catholic high schools in the United States. These high schools provided an education for 582,745 secondary students, with 19.8% of those students being racial minorities. Catholic high schools provide a fundamental education for students, and they take a lot of the burden off of local public schools. These schools, while often receiving less attention in the news media for curriculums and parent board meetings, provide an essential function of educating up to 20% of America's students. There are several key questions that Catholic high schools need to consider when choosing a program for writing instruction. The first is, what are the programs and strategies being used by feeder schools? Many Catholic high schools can have dozens, if not near 100, different feeder schools, whereas many public schools only have 3 or 4 schools, junior highs or elementary schools, that feed into a high school. Because Catholic is selective, there are many different factors that need to be considered. Students may travel more than 20 or 30 miles in order to attend a school, and it is important for decision makers to know the methods of instruction at these schools. Secondly, are schools giving writing diagnostics? And if so, who has access to the results? It is a common practice in Catholic education for only the guidance counselor of a student as well as administrators to have access to results. If results are provided to teachers, they may have an easier time providing for writing instruction. Because most students enter a Catholic high school in the 9th grade, it is very important to know the reading level of students entering the 9th grade. This can be obtained easily through grammar school records or participation in a selective standardized test to enter the school. Next, what is the training of the faculty at the given school? As mentioned earlier, writing across the curriculum requires teachers to have a certain type of training. Decision makers can better be informed by providing a survey for faculty. And lastly, what is the training and expertise of the faculty? Many times faculty engage in professional development seminars, and it is important for administrators to know the skills of their faculty to best make decisions to serve their students. An example of the thought process that can go into determining a writing strategy and instruction method best benefiting students can be seen by examining De La Salle Institute. De La Salle Institute is a co-institutional Catholic high school on the south side of Chicago that educates approximately 1,050 students. De La Salle is unique in that it is one school with two separate campuses. There is a young men's campus and a young women's campus located approximately a mile apart. De La Salle takes in students from more than 100 grammar schools in Chicago, the northern, southern, and western suburbs. De La Salle students are 70% racial minorities, and all faculty are certified teachers, the majority of which have a master's degree. In fact, a master's degree is required for tenure at De La Salle. Considering De La Salle's student makeup, it is recommended that De La Salle adopts a blended approach to writing instruction. Process writing would allow teachers to focus on specific writing tasks which may not have been emphasized in grammar schools. Because students come from so many different grammar schools, it is important that De La Salle provides well-rounded writing instruction. Students in process writing are still able to be challenged through workshops, whereas students who are struggling are still offered the option of receiving assistance, either from their teacher or their peers. Additionally, process writing can boost the ability levels and confidences of De La Salle's ELL population. In addition to process writing, the 6+1 writing approach would generate traits that students at De La Salle can use as guideposts and checklists to become confident, independent writers. This method would be particularly beneficial to use at the Institute campus for young men, where many of the students participate in extracurricular activities as well as sports teams that are modeled behind slogans. For instance, last year's De La Salle boys volleyball team operated under the motto that we are one. With using these traits as guideposts as a sort of rallying cry, students can become more confident and independent writers.